It's already getting me pumped up, and I'm excited for how much this lobby, or well, the attendance now just keeps popping in, popping in, popping in. So what a great turnout. Thanks so much for organizing. So hi, everybody. My name is Eric Kukuchka. As mentioned, VP of Clinical Removable Process and Design Technologies. Really, my roles and responsibility are on educating doctors on the art and science of creating superior dentures by training in both hands-on and virtual learning environments at the Aspen Group and Aspen Dental. And then mentoring on a day-to-day support, walking doctors through difficult cases, educating doctors, supporting them through their journey, whether it's a removable case, overdenture case, fixed full arch, and just making sure that the delivery of our removable care across all of our offices from a clinical perspective are met. Also in that role as well, the digital transformation of dentistry and dentures across all of our locations in partnership with Jess and multiple people on our team, as well as working alongside the lab technicians and our digital designers. So really and truly all well-rounded, I would say, and everybody likes to laugh, but I'm on a denture adventure every single day with our team, really trying to change dentistry. So good to be here with everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. All aboard the Denture Adventure tonight. We're talking all things digital dentistry. We're excited to have you here. Thank you for everyone who continues to join. I'll pass it over to the lovely Jess Winchell to introduce herself. She is our Vice President of Digital Lab Operations.
Hi, everybody. Excited to be with you tonight. I've been on this denture adventure with Eric for the last 3 years on the digital side, but I've been with Aspen for 14 years. So initially I started out in the field working with our operations and our clinical teams, supporting them as a multi-unit leader. And then it came over to the digital side, like I said, 3 years ago, initially building an implementation team that went out and trained the offices for digital dentistry workflows, and now I'm primarily responsible for our digital design network that designs the dentures as well as surgical guides. We also are responsible for our centralized manufacturing, and then also the class that actually teaches our in-office technicians how to print and assemble and make digital dentures and run a digital lab.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. Thank you for joining us tonight. So just to kind of tee up tonight, guys, I have a few questions that I'm going to dive into with Eric and Jessica, but the chat box is open. So any questions that you have that you'd like to hear from Erica and Jess on, please feel free to utilize this chat box. We are monitoring it so that we can ask them your questions. So let's kick it off with Jess, Erica. Why do you think that it makes sense to make the move to digital? What does the move to digital provide to our patients and to our offices?
Jess, you want to take the first one? Ladies first.
Sure, absolutely. So Aspen Dental as an organization was really founded upon access to care for our patients. And so digital dentistry just carries on that mission. So digital dentistry really has allowed us to lower appointment times, get better fits, more comfortable fits with our prosthetics, as well as provide our patients better education. So, we talk a lot, we say the denture adventure, but digital dentistry is more than just dentures. It starts at patient education. And so it starts with that very first visit where you take what we call a dental health scan, which is an iOS scan that we take, and we use that for education of our patients. Seeing is believing. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And we say that a lot on our side of things. But really, taking this digital journey is really all about continuing to provide access to care for our patients in an elevated way.
Yeah, and I think from a clinical perspective, for the doctors on the call or soon to be doctors on the call, it really allows you to operate at a level of precision and efficacy that's never possible before when you think about material-based impressions and all the error-prone processes that come along with everything that you do in restorative dentistry, right? Whether that's removable prosthetic, direct restorative, indirect restorative, really anything from a restorative perspective. And think about the world today where you could do an oral health scan, as Jess mentioned, and use AI technology to deliver a 3D printed night guard in the same chair visit, one appointment dentistry. And having micrometric precision of scanning your preps, scanning the occlusion, those things are just impossible to do with material-based impressions or the conventional methodologies of the past. I think what Jess mentioned is really important as well, is better access to care, but faster time to teeth, right? So getting those scans, giving the labs digitally, transferring that data within a matter of seconds to any lab across the country or internationally, if you work with international labs, to get those precise workflows, less adjustments on you as the doctor. So when you deliver a crown, a bridge, an implant restoration, or even a denture, removing those error-prone processes of having to make multiple adjustments, they literally just pop right in. So I think that's really important. I think another thing is data acquisition and data preservation. So having the ability, not just from an internal perspective, but think of it even as a licensure perspective and protecting yourself, of having digital records of your work, records of your preps, records of your restorations once you seat them, and also being able to monitor that patient through their lifespan of the practice, right? Because when you think of a 2D, or excuse me, you think of a Panorex, which is really two-dimensional visibility, right? When you have an oral health scan or a scan of the patient's mouth, that's three-dimensional. I love the way Jess said is once you see it, you don't unsee it. And for those of you that follow Frank Spear, that was his quote. And it's really true. When patients see their teeth on the computer screen, it's far different than the toes that you're showing them on a 2D X-ray, and it really allows you to have better communication, excuse me, with patients, and it builds trust and confidence. I think everybody on this call wants to see an oral surgeon or an orthopedic surgeon or a cardiologist or an ophthalmologist that have the latest and greatest technology, giving you that confidence. When you walk in, you see that technology as a form of communication and really building trust. Would really be some of the things I summarize from a clinical perspective of the why. And I'd ask yourself is why not, right? I think there was an interesting study that was posted in 2019. And back then it said 66% of private practices in the next 3 years would engage in digital technology. 80% of the dentists surveyed said they preferred digital over analog, and 80% of patients said they preferred a digital impression over an analog impression. And I think, listen, today the world is digital.
Great answer and explanation, Eric. So Eric and Jess, what are Aspen's key partnerships currently in the digital world?
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the thing about partnerships. Partnerships are extremely important from a relationship perspective, but also getting back to the trust and the confidence. And when you think of some of the companies in the industry that have been around for nearly a century or half a century, it's important to partner, especially when you're getting into the digital ecosystem, and ensuring that you have the right materials, the right validations, the right processes, the right workflows. So yeah, some of our key partners include 3Shape. We use 3Shape ecosystem for our scanning. Ivoclar has been a key partner for Aspen Dental for a long time. When we introduced the IvoBase back in 2012 or 2014, when that technology came into the industry. And I think it's important to talk about that from an analog perspective. Is people have this preconceived notion about DSOs and they're all about money and doing cheap things. And we've always used premium products using IvoBase injection technology, Dentsply Portrait IPN denture teeth, high quality impression materials. So, Ivoclar has been a very great strategic partner. Dentsply, Sirona, as I mentioned, SprintRay from a 3D printing perspective, and also Carbon from a 3D printing perspective. So we use premium materials on both our analog and digital dentures. Jess, maybe I missed some partnerships there that are key.
No, those are definitely our key partners. I think the big thing to understand is we're really trying to create a cohesive ecosystem. And, we do that with both our technology and our consumable product partners. So it's really all about making sure that we are able to deliver the best quality product to the patient.
Awesome. Eric, I know that you mentioned, there are some preconceived notions about DSOs, and you yourself, I remember being with you a few weeks ago and we got you and you told your story about how you made your way to Aspen. And I think that that's important to hit on here. Would you mind telling the students a little bit about maybe what your preconceived notions were about Aspen and how, that vastly changed for you?
Yeah, I mean, putting me on the spot here. So hopefully,
I think it's an important story to
It's
share.
fine. It's fine. Yeah, I mean, preconceived notion was, Aspen Dental was the devil, and Aspen Dental was the bad guys. And I remember even like 5 or 6 years ago being like at a lab day show and seeing the Aspen Dental booth, and I'm like, look at these people just trying to recruit technicians to do bad quality work and make money. And I think it's really important when you think about, don't judge a book by its cover, or don't judge a book about what you hear and what you see versus what's real. So I'm going to make a really long story short, but Dr. Sandeep Rawal, who's our senior vice president of implant support, him and I have known each other for about 10 years, lectured for Noble Biocare, lectured for 3Shape together, lectured for Ivoclar together. So we spent a lot of years kind of at the same symposiums and really hanging with the same crowd, you could say. And 3 years ago, not 3 years ago, I'm sorry, back in 2019, him and I were doing 5 years ago.
5 years
Yeah,
ago.
we were doing a
Wow.
hands-on digital denture program in Orlando, Florida. And he's like, hey, this is probably the last time I'm going to be doing this with you. And I said, why? He said, well, I sold my pros practice and I'm going to join Aspen Dental. And I said, let me understand this. You're leaving the pros community to go join a DSO. And Aspen Dental, he said, yep. I said, you're a sellout. I said, I can't believe like you're going to throw away everything that we, believe in and what we live for. Then literally 3 months later, him and I were both lecturing at the American College of Prosthodontics meeting in February at the midwinter meeting. And I said to him, hey, how's the biggest mistake you've ever made in your life? And he said, I'm going to tell you something. You have no idea who we are, what we do, and what we stand for. And I'm telling you right now that Aspen Dental is very different than what you think. So fast forward now to 2021, Aspen decided, hey, they're going to go digital with their dentures. And literally the next day, Dr. Wall called me and said, hey, I'd love for you to just do some videos and some consulting and work with Jess and our team. We're really trying to build this ecosystem. I said, okay, fine. Like, I'll do it. So I still ran my private practices at the time. And I can tell you the first time I came to Aspen was the leadership retreat. And what better way to drink the blue Kool-Aid than come to the best event of the whole year? But it wasn't about the best event of the whole year. It was the people, the culture, and what the brand really stood for is what really hit home for me. And the way that Jess said it earlier, and I think I really want this to resonate with everyone on the call. When we talk about who our Aspen patient is and understanding that Aspen patient who has been pushing off dentistry for a long time, who needs that access to care, that can't get into that private practice or has been just putting it off, and something in their life just tells them now's the moment, we enable the opportunity to give those patients that access to care. And I think once I really understood that and met amazing people like Jess and other people within the organization, it really, really instilled in me of this is a place I'd love to be. And I was offered a full-time position. I sold my practices and my lab to my associate last September. So I've been full-time for about a year and a half, but really with the organization for 3.5 years. And there's no better place in the world than Aspen Dental. And when we talk about mentorship, we talk about guidance, we talk about clinical support, operational support, and really how we are truly changing dentistry every single day and changing the lives of millions of people. I really believe that to be true. And I actually said that I lectured at the American College of American Prosthodontic Society this year, and stood in front of 500 prosthodontists and said, I'm proud to work at Aspen Dental because I believe we make some of the best dentures in the world. And I really mean that, and I believe that. So that's the story, and I'm sticking to it.
Eric, I think what I love is whenever you came over and you started to like run through that thought process in your head. For you, it was all about, look, I can take an organization that has great culture and they already know what they're doing. We've been doing it for 25 years, but you can make it better. And so nobody has had the heart for dentures the way that you have, or to make it better for our patients. And nobody's had the expertise the same way that you have to be able to bridge the gap, both for clinicians as well as technicians. So that was really something that was unique now for our organization, is having somebody who could, help, this relationship, who has been key to our organization this entire time, right? Our lab technicians and our doctors, like that has been a really key relationship for 25 years. Now it's strengthened and they understand each other in a different way than they ever have before. And so I think that's, been an amazing like byproduct of us taking this like digital adventure that, oh, by the way, Eric and I both signed up for as like a temporary assignment to help out, that now is our, full-time daylight to dark. We live, sleep, breathe digital dentistry.
I love it. And you can tell the passion that you guys have about digital dentistry, which I think is the underpinning of Aspen and Aspen's culture, is how passionate we are about what we do as an organization. We are in the business of breaking down barriers for patients to be able to get access and better access to care. So you can really feel that energy, which I love. So another question that I have is, where are we now as far as scanning technology, and where are we headed?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that.
Sure.
So, I mean, really and truly today, there is no dental indication that can't be scanned. And that is both intraorally and extraorally through multiple methodologies of scanning, whether it's a desktop scanner where you're scanning either a material-based impression or you're scanning a physical stone gypsum cast, or intraoral scanning. And even when it comes to full arch, all on 4, all on 6, or all on X restorations, whether it's a micron mapper, whether it's photogrammetry, whether it's intraoral scan bodies, or even doing fully edentulous scans, which we can talk about and we can debate whether that's a viable method of doing for complete removable prosthetics. But really today, there's nothing that really and truly cannot be scanned. And with AI, that's going to continue to get better each and every single day. There's already diagnostic capabilities in multiple aspects of these scanners, being able to detect caries, being able to detect wear facets, being able to detect recession. That coupled with AI technology, potentially from NVIDIA or Pearl, where you're really getting those diagnostics cohesively working together with each other. But we've come a long way for scanning, definitely. But in my mind, there's really nothing that can't be scanned.
And just so you guys know, 99% of our offices have an intraoral scanner, with 97% of them having 2 or more scanners. So I think that's important to know and to understand, like, how much, not only we believe in scanning technology, but also our practice owners who have made the investment.
So just a reminder to everybody on the call, the chat box is open, so please feel free to submit any questions that you do have. Jess and Eric, would you guys be able to explain what the digital denture workflow is currently looking like?
Sure. Yeah. So I think when we talk about digital dentures in specific and the workflow, I want to remind you guys on the call, for the clinicians, is digital dentures was never designed from it was never intended to remove the clinical efficacy or the clinical workflow. Really, the initial basis behind the process, back when really the innovation started first in 2011 by Avident, which was the world's first commercially available digital denture, and then reinvigorated in 2014 by 3Shape and Ivoclar, and of course have multiple iterations since then. But the clinical workflow is actually meant to stay the same. It's the manufacturing process and the error-prone processes along that way is what changes, increasing the throughput in the lab, increasing the consistency and effectiveness of the digital design process, and lastly, into the manufacturing. So when you think about the workflow, if your workflow today is taking an alginate impression, doing a border molded final impression with a custom tray, then making a set of bite rims and articulating those bite rims, that can be your same clinical workflow. Then you enter the digital world by either scanning those gypsum casts, 3D printing a monoblock and a monolithic try-in, and then either 3D printing or milling the final denture. Another workflow is using the patient's, existing denture. So that's also known as a reference denture or a denture duplication technique, where you take impressions inside the patient's existing denture, you would scan that, then you'd go to a monoblock try-in, and then you would 3D print or mill the final restoration. For immediate denture, an intraoral scan the intraoral situation, or you could take a material-based impression, pour the stone model, scan that stone model, and then go directly to manufacturing. I want to touch on my comments earlier with respect to intraoral scanning for full edentulous soft tissue. I think one thing to remember for the clinicians on the call is we have myostatic and mucostatic impressions, right? So mucocompressive and mucostatic. So mucocompressive, of course, when a patient's wearing a removable prosthesis, there's compression of the soft tissue and the surrounding structures. When you have a mucostatic impression, which is better for removable partial dentures, right? Capturing that static position of the teeth and the soft tissue. But when you think of a dentulous soft tissue, you want to have a mucocompressive impression. You want to capture that soft tissue under the patient's bite force, okay? Which is what intraoral scanning does not do. Secondarily to that, the one thing that intraoral scanning negates and ignores is getting a suction effectiveness from having a functional impression that captures the border seal. So why today in dental school, when you use compound to seal the borders and use either a medium or a light body material-based impression to get your soft tissue under compression, is to capture that border seal. When you do an IOS scan, you're actually just following a myostatic outline or the mucogingival fold, and you're arbitrarily determining where the denture border finishes. You're not actually capturing those muscle movements, so the muscles of facial expression and mastication under function. So although there's a lot of great literature that will show you the accuracy, trueness, and precision of intraoral scanning of fully edentulous arches, what it is not enabled to do is to capture those functional roles and get those borders for the denture extension.
Elizabeth, I think something that's really key to note is that beginning with your journey, essentially day one at Aspen, we start immersing you in the culture of digital. As you heard, 99% of our offices have intraoral scanners. And so we really take pride in making sure that we're incorporating that in your learning journey. So from the time that you're spending with your mentor doctor in the practice to whenever you come to Chicago for our, 4-week class that our new doctors come to, in that week, you're getting hands-on time, one-on-one with a scanner. You're getting time, learning from Eric and some of the finest clinicians in the organization around just digital workflows in general, everything from dental health scans to understanding dentures and denture flows, as well as crown and bridge, how to support implants, and just scanning in general. So, there's a lot of questions about workflow, but we really take a lot of time to invest and make sure that you are taught the right way to do things. And then we have teams built out to support you for those as well. We have support teams to support digital dentures. We have support teams to support implants, crown and bridge. So we have the teams here to work with you to make sure that you learn and you understand so that you're never left alone.
I think that's such a great point, and I think we don't talk about that enough, is really what makes us extremely successful in working together with you and onboarding you in that method. And if you think about the private practice world, you're going to get mentored by maybe somebody that's not even in digital, or not being able to reach out to experts like myself or other experts on our clinical team that are there with you every step of the way for those easy cases and those difficult cases. And I really think our onboarding is second to none. I hear that from every time I give people a tour. I mean, we've had people from one of our partnerships we didn't mention is Straumann. So yes, as a DSO, we use the world's best and most premium implant system out there. And when you see our facility and see how we truly onboard in our training and education facility, including our oral care center, where we give away millions of dollars in complimentary dentistry to those less fortunate in the community of Chicago, you'll actually do that through your part of the onboarding in the implant continuum, where you'll end up coming in on a weekend and placing up to 20 implants on live patients. So it's really remarkable the way that we guide you through your learning journey through your time with us.
Awesome. I'm so glad that you guys touched on that. Jess, what were you going to add in?
I was just going to say, I am watching the chat. And a question that's kind of like relevant to what we're talking about right now is just asking about, as a part of that onboarding, do all of our offices have scanners and onboard with digital dentistry? So there are only 10 offices. So I said 99% of our offices have them. There are literally 10 offices in the organization that do not have an iOS scanner right now. And that's for some varied reasons, but only 10. So whenever you think about an organization that has, 1,000, what do we have? 1,075 or something like that right now. So yeah, there are 10. So we are really committed to making sure that our offices have the technology, and you begin to learn that again as soon as you come in.
Jess, can you talk a little bit about the work that you do out in the field, helping get the offices set up for digital technology and what that training looks like outside of what we just discussed with the new doctor learning journey for the doctor side?
Absolutely. So right now we have around 200 locations that have been set up on digital dentures, although all of our locations have digital enablement for like crown and bridge, partials, implants, things, ortho, dental health scans, things like that. So there's, the greater digital journey for like all the service lines, and then there's also the digital denture journey. And so the implementation team that is the team that helped to get the intraoral scanners actually into the practices, get people trained. They're also the team that helps to teach the digital denture workflows. And so really, whenever an office goes live on a scanner, there's a trainer that comes in, teaches them how to use the scanner, all the features, works chair side with them. So they will see patients with you. They kind of act like a surgical rep who's there working with you chair side. They are, former, clinical team members like dental assistants or technicians, hygienists, also some operations team members who have crossed over. So they will work chair side to make sure that you guys understand what you need to understand. Same thing on the denture side. So they'll come chair side with you. They'll help guide you to the best practices from an impression technique in partnership with Eric. Make sure that you understand scanning. They work side by side with our lab technicians to make sure they understand, the print and assembly process, how to make sure everything goes well in the lab. So it's a full team that comes in to support to make sure that you get that actual like hands-on training whenever an office goes live, with either the new workflows or with the scanner in general.
Awesome. It's something I think that's so important for everyone on this call to understand. Like, you guys as clinicians, it's so important for you to have support and a team behind you that has your back. And when you have people like Jess and Eric behind you, you are unstoppable. We have the right teams in place to be able to help support you as you guide into your practice. So another question that I have is, what can or should students be doing if their dental school doesn't offer much in that digital landscape and they want and are eager to learn more?
You're on mute,
If you're on mute, Eric.
Oh, that happened, but digital technology.
Yeah.
I think the one thing, is going on the internet is for one, reading articles, going on YouTube, seeing how people are doing what they're doing, and starting to get yourself versed. We're going to post in the chat. I've got quite a few white papers, some articles, some great step-by-step, some videos that we've put all the links together for you from a digital dentures perspective. But I really encourage you to do your research on the Journal of Prosthetic Dentistry, to go on even Google and type in many different things like scanning accuracy, digital crowns, 3D printing, and really immerse yourself in what the digital dentistry ecosystem is and understanding it from the ground up. Go to courses, volunteer. Those are really what I recommend to people is when you want to get into this, find the best resources, look at 3Shape, look at Ivoclar, look at Dentsply, SprintRay 3D printing technologies, but really read articles and immerse yourself in understanding what's the difference between analog and digital. And I think that'll really help you, because although digital is one of the most amazing things that's ever happened to dentistry, your ability to understand still the analog process. And when I say things like material-based impressions, and you understand that there's dimensional stability changes, there's accuracy challenges, because you've done that, you've learned it from the ground up. And I think that's really important. I think for Jess and I, when we used to have to do research on something, we had to go to the library, rent out the book, get it stamped. You had 5 days before you had to bring it back, and you had to look through the whole book to find your answer. Whereas today, you could go on ChatGPT and probably get your answer for almost everything out there that you need. So you have the ability today to get these resources at your fingertips. So those are my recommendations, but passing over to Jess.
Eric, speak for yourself. I'm only 22. I've been Googling since I was 5. What do you mean?
Sorry.
No, I agree. And I think it's funny. So whenever I worked in operations, I was really focused on the doctors, and I was always at the, like Greater New York and Midwinter and things like that. And there are some great courses there. But what I've really found since taking the dive into the denture adventure is that there are really amazing things if you just go to lab day. Like if you really want to learn more about dentures and you want to learn more about what's happening in the lab and some of the digital technologies from an all-encompassing perspective, also it's a little more chill and laid back, go to lab day. There are some really amazing courses that you can take at lab day that will really help you to understand really the digital journey.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you're going to learn a lot going to a lab day. Come to Midwinter. If you have not been to Midwinter in February, that's definitely one place I recommend that you go if you haven't done that yet before. All the meetings, the AAD, the ACP, the APS, Fixed Academy, Lab Day, it's all there happening. There's usually some fun Aspen events at some way, shape, or form usually during that week.
Always. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to the chat box and a few questions that we've received. Everyone, you have industry leading professionals here with you right now, so any question, please feel free to add into the chat box. So the first one I'll go through is, do any Aspen Dental offices implement CEREC same-day crowns or larger in-house milling machines such as Ivoclar PM7?
Yeah, great question. So when it comes to CEREC chairside milling, listen, I think it's a really revolutionary, amazing system, but unfortunately, the overall adoption of that has continued to decrease year over year. And a lot of that comes from just the lack of simplicity, scalability, and consistency that you're getting from that system. And it's also very expensive. Average CEREC startup is about $125,000 to $150,000 from when you get your scanner, your milling machine, and your sintering machine. Is there still a large group of following with the CEREC technology? Absolutely. I will tell you that in the next 2 to 3 years, you will not be milling anything chairside. It will all be 3D printed. Last year, I would say, was a breakthrough for 3D printing technology from a resin perspective. Do I think that resin technology is able to 3D print a permanent definitive crown? I think the jury's still out. But the coding has changed now from the CDT stating as long as it's 50% ceramic or more, it can be determined a definitive crown. But actually this weekend I saw some pretty, going to courses, saw a revolutionary digital press stereolithography technology that SprintRay launched. So use your Google and look up MIDAS, MIDAS. Basically, to put in its simplest form, it's a 3D printed pressed lithium disilicate that's about 70% ceramic that can be 3D printed in 8 minutes. And I think this is one of the biggest breakthroughs. That's why they're partnering with Ivoclar, which was announced over the weekend. So I think the years of CEREC and chairside milling or even larger scale millings from a chairside perspective will be obsolete in the near future. To answer your question of what kind of technologies the offices do have, we do have 3D printers in about 25%, Jess, would you say, of our ecosystem? Yeah. We're going through our digital transformation. So again, our number one goal is to be able to 3D print almost every indication possible, whether it's a night guard, a retainer, a denture, eventually a crown, maybe a bridge, and some veneers, models, really being able to print anything chairside. So I hope that answered your question. I like that you said the Ivoclar PM7. It's an awesome mill. I was actually part of the development of that mill, but that's really big unit to have in a dental office and very expensive. Great question.
We try to stay ahead of technology, and so oftentimes we're the first ones to test it and try it before it really goes like super mainstream. And so to that end, we actually tried putting like CEREC machines at some of our locations, and it was about 8 years ago or so that we really started trying that. And the ones that are left are collecting dust for the most part. Transparently, we have one owner that really loved it and hung in there and is still doing it today in upstate New York. But really, that's the only one who's doing it. And again, it's just because they've learned efficiencies in their workflow and things over time that as we partner with other like larger lab partners, really they found that there's really not a need for it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Another question that we got was, how does the quality and longevity of digitally designed and milled dentures compare to conventionally processed dentures?
Yeah, great question. So I think when, again, going back to all the error-prone processes that are associated with a removable prosthesis. So let's forget everything up to the bite block perspective. When you have to set teeth, which I'm sure most, if not all of you, have had to do once in your dental career, you understand, from your experience that the wax heats up, it melts, it cools, it shrinks, the teeth move, the articulations move. There's all these processes that can go wrong along the way. So from an accuracy and a precision perspective, when you have something that's digitally designed where the occlusion's already bilateral balance, when the gingiva has uniform thickness and it has all those consistencies, from that perspective, that's where we think about the quality. When we're comparing material sciences, if you think about the companies that I mentioned, Ivoclar, Dentsply, they have engineered their materials, whether it's 3D printed or milled, to be the same or better than analog. And in both the milling and the printing world, materials are better, okay? Because if you think of the milled world, the milled pucks are pre-polymerized, heat injection pressed pucks. So they have a higher impact strength, a higher fracture toughness. They have no porosity. It's very, very biocompatible and better than any polymethyl methacrylate that you can do in an analog conventional world, whether it's injected fluid resin or press and pack. When it comes to 3D printing, of course, it's material dependent because there's a lot of materials in the market that will claim that they're high impact strength and have high fracture toughness and they're biocompatible, but that's not necessarily true. And to Jess's point, we're always ahead of the curve, but we always make sure that we test and we validate the processes that we use. When it comes to 3D printing, the number one 3D printed denture on the market today is the Lucitone Digital Print, which is from Dentsply. I'm sure most of you use Lucitone 199 or have heard of Lucitone 199, but it's really the same science behind Lucitone 199 with one very important added feature, which is called BAM, which is body activated material. So the Lucitone Digital Print, when it hits body temperature 37°C, it doubles its fracture toughness. And that was a revolutionary breakthrough back in 2019 when Dentsply launched the resin. So it is the same or better across the board when you think of the longevity of the digital design materials. And there is insurmountable amount of publications that will show you that to be true.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Another question is, what does your timeline look for all of the offices to be able to be 3D printing dentures?
That's a loaded question.
Loaded question.
A little bit of a moving target. Look, I think the best thing to say is right now, from a timeline perspective, we think we will start scaling again. We've kind of been on a pause while we make sure that we get it right, because at the end of the day, again, we are committed to delivering the best quality product for our patients. Right now we're on schedule to start scaling again, early to mid next year. The actual rollout plan for the timeline as to how long that will take is yet to be determined. So more to come there, but I will tell you that we will be scaled to our entire organization before most people even start trying it in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it is at scale, has not been adopted. Really, the last report I read in LMT magazine, I believe, was 12% of all labs have adopted digital technology. I think it was 86% of dentists are still doing all analog work. I think it was 34% of dentists have tried a digital denture. I'm proud to say we are the largest we have the largest delivery of 3D printed dentures in the world. I think it's over 200,000 now that we've delivered. So it's a really amazing accomplishment. I think I want to do level set on one thing though, is all of our offices are digital though. Dentures is really the only piece that is not the full digital end to end for all of our locations, but all crowns, all bridges, all implant restorations, night guards, surgical
Partials.
guides, partial dentures, all of our partials are done fully digitally. So really this is just the last piece on our journey and our transformation, and it's one of the longest and challenging ones in the industry to get to that level. And I mean, being at 200 locations in itself has been a great lift, a great learning experience. And I can tell you that the results that we are achieving from a patient perspective, doctor perspective, turnaround time has been amazing. We just need to be able to replicate that times 10, times 5. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys. What I think is important is, like you said, Jess, we want to figure everything out before we continue that rollout. So to be able to focus on those 200 offices and then build from there, it's what it's all about. So another question, they noticed when you guys were talking about the CERCs, when you said that, one of the owners still had them, that means that owners are able to make the choice of what technology they have in their office. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think one of the nice parts about joining Aspen Dental is the opportunity for ownership. And, even though we're all under the same brand, and there's a lot that's the same, right? The look and the feel of the buildings, how we set them up, all of that's the same. Still, the individual teams inside of them all look a little bit different, and the practice owners are all a little bit different. They all have different interests, different things that they are, kind of seeking after from an education perspective, from a patient experience perspective. And so they do have their own little microcultures, and with that comes the ability for owners to decide if there's certain pieces of technology that they want to try out, whether it's lasers. One of our owners has the robotic arm that places implants. Eric, you can say the name of the machine, I don't know it.
Yeah.
To Serac, like we have different owners that want to go on these adventures, and we definitely want to be on that with them. It also helps us learn too, right? Like if there's something that we come across that we think would be good at scale, it helps us. So there's definitely some workability. There are some parameters that we want to make sure we're all following. We want to make sure that we're helping our owners make smart financial decisions. But at the end of the day, like, the owner does own the practice, and if they want to invest in that technology, they have the right to invest in that technology.
Thank you, Jess. Another question. As far as the RPD goes, do you scan before and after you have the design ready, or just after? By design, I mean the rest seats, survey crowns, etc.
Yeah, great question. So I think there's two ways to look at that, right? So when you think about surveying rest seat designs, how do you typically do that in an analog world? Is you take a preliminary cast and you do your surveying and you evaluate your pre-existing situation to help determine what type of precision attachments you may need, and also where do you want your ideal rest seats. So you can do that in two ways. You can scan the existing cast and utilize that as your diagnostic to determine where you're going to place your rest seats and any other restorative measures, and then go ahead and do those rest seats and then do a new scan. Especially if you're going to do surveyed crowns, is typically how I would recommend doing that.
Awesome. Another question came in. Do you guys happen to know if a lot of other DSOs offer the same technology and training opportunities as Aspen?
I think I'll take part of that, and then Eric, you can
Yeah.
follow up. Eric and I both have been afforded the opportunity to sit on 3Shapes advisory board. So I'm on their DSO advisory board, and Eric is a part of their clinical advisory board. So we get an opportunity to work with a lot of other DSOs. And I think technology is the future. So other DSOs are certainly exploring it. Have they adopted it quite at the same scale that we have? No, and it's kind of a little bit of a running joke when we're on our advisory board calls, and they're like, well, of course, like, we don't have the same problem at scale as you do, but whatever it is. And so I do think that other DSOs are starting to come along on the journey, and all kind of in their own fashion and their own, roadmap, if you will. So I don't think we're exclusive to that, but I will say, in terms of like size and scale and offerings across the board, I would say we are second to none across that. So
I couldn't agree more. And I think even our onboarding, our training, it's truly second to none. And even in that fourth week where you come in and you learn how to use that scanner for all the indications when you come in person, and also just the ability to have resources like Jess, like myself, like others on the team, people on the scanning team and the enablement team, and really and our partnerships with 3Shape. So literally anything and everything that you want to be able to do, we have a solution for you.
Thank you, guys. This has been a great call, being able to discuss more about digital dentistry. All of these questions have been great. I see another question. As a new grad, does Aspen train their dentists in digital dentistry in terms of CE courses as well as mentorship?
Yep. So there's CE certification for all different aspects of dentistry that we're doing: crown and bridge, removable, fixed, implants, everything and anything. So we have that, and the mentorship is never ending, from in-person training, as we mentioned. We also have virtual continuums that you can take and get CE for. So the learning never stops across all aspects of clinical, and even into operations and other verticals within the organization, you can also get CE for. And the mentorship, again, as Jess mentioned, comes from working alongside the practice owner and the managing clinical directors in those offices, and then the mentorship that you get from myself and others on our clinical team to help guide and support you through your journey and long past your journey.
Definitely. Can you guys speak a little bit to how you would describe Aspen's culture? I know, Eric, you travel to a lot of offices to be able to help with the digital side. Jess, you do as well. Like, how would you describe Aspen to somebody who doesn't know much about us?
Jess, you take that one, 14 years in.
I think I always say the same thing. We're definitely a work hard, play hard culture, honestly. So we definitely believe in rolling up our sleeves and doing what we need to do to take care of the patient. Like, first and foremost, like, taking care of the patient is our primary goal and it's our primary responsibility. We firmly believe that if you're taking care of the patient coming in the front door and the team member going out the back door, then everything else just falls into line. And so it's really all about doing the right thing for both your team and the patients. So that, that type of mentality like drives our culture. And then we also just have a ton of fun like doing it along the way.
Yeah, I think that's a really amazing way to say it. And I think one thing I want to highlight too is what you're really good at is dentistry, and what we want you to be really good at is dentistry, and want to hone your skills at is dentistry, not managing the finances, managing how many people are coming in today, managing all those things that, running private practice for 13 years, I had 2 full-time jobs. Even though I had a great office manager, it was still always listening to every little thing and what's happening here and who's this and who's that and where's this and where's that and what about this, and trying to negotiate and doing all those things. Versus, it was interesting, once I sold the practice and I actually became an associate, I was like, wow, this is what it's like to leave at 5 o'clock and like not have to worry about the bills or the finances or how many people are showing up and all those other things, and someone else is going to take care of it. And I think that is something very special. There's a lot of DSOs, and there's a lot of DSOs that will do that for you, but I don't personally think they'll do it as good as we do and have as much fun as we do with it. And I think that is important when you're graduating, when you're coming in to go do what you went to school for and hopefully find that passion and be in love with your career. Being able to just do what you love to do and do it well every single day, I think provides a lot of purpose. And I think that's one thing that sets our organization apart.
I definitely agree. Aspen is a very special place. We are a work hard, play hard organization. But it is great to be able to speak with you two tonight about digital technology. I thank you both for your time. As we look at wrapping up the call, I'd love to just ask both of you, like, what advice would you offer up to attendees as they embark on their journey after school and their own individual denture adventures?
I will tell you a couple things. You're only as good as your next denture, your next crown, your next extraction, your next filling, your next consult. And what do I mean by the next is that you can always be better. And I think it's really important to be a very, very coachable. And although you've had all this academic knowledge and institutional knowledge and experience, you've heard this before in every industry, is the real world is very different than what you learn in school. And school gives you, or an academia, excuse me, gives you the opportunity to give you the foundational knowledge to enable you to interpret situations. The best communicators are listeners. And I think being able to be mentored and being able to learn from your mistakes, trust me, I've made thousands of mistakes and it's only made me better because I was willing to listen to those around me. And sometimes listening is also listening to the patient, listening to the patient's wants and needs, listening to your team members, listening to those that have experience. So really what I would tell you, on all aspects of dentistry, remember that you're only as good as your next case, and it can always be better, and really just be open to feedback and coaching. That's really the best advice I could give you.
I think Eric had amazing advice, so I don't have a whole lot to add to that, other than the fact of don't be afraid. I've worked with so many young doctors, especially, you know, in my operations career, who came out of school and they were just afraid. They were afraid to do it, afraid to try new things, afraid to ask questions, afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid. That's it. Don't be afraid. We are here to support you, and we're here to take this journey with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric and Jess, for joining tonight. Thank you to all of the students in this chat as well for being able to join and learn more about digital dentistry. I'm going to follow up all with you via email with the resources that Eric has provided for you guys to be able to dive deeper on your own about digital technology. Also, if you're interested in getting in contact with a recruiter to learn more opportunities about Aspen Dental, please feel free to just respond to that email and I will get you connected with the recruiter in your territory. So thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to join us tonight. And I look forward to following up with you all.
Thanks. Have a great night,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody. Good night.
Take care.